William Hawkins, an ambitious mining engineer with a reputation for solving the unsolvable, was dispatched to the galaxy's most enigmatic expanse, the Golden Wastes, a vast, sun-scorched desert on the frontier of human exploration. This wasn't just another job, it was the job. The sands were rumored to conceal veins of minerals so rare and potent that a single shipment could revolutionize humanity's technological future. The mission was clear: assess, extract, and leave. No complications, no distractions. It was supposed to be a barren land, void of life, where silence ruled, and only the hum of machinery could break the stillness. Yet the moment William stepped off his landing craft, his expectations unraveled. The desert stretched endlessly, its dunes shimmering like molten gold under the twin suns. It was beautiful in a way that felt almost unnatural, as if the land itself pulsed with life. William crouched and ran his gloved fingers through the sand, which sparkled with tiny metallic fragments. "Rich," he murmured, his pulse quickening, beyond imagination. Just as he reached for his scanner, a sound pierced the stillness, a baby's cry. William froze, his training, his logic, everything he knew screamed impossible. He scanned the horizon, his mind racing to rationalize the sound. But then it came again, more distinct this time, urgent, fragile. Before he could act, another sound followed, a woman's voice, distant but unmistakable. "William help us." He spun around, heart pounding. His name. How did anyone here know his name? The voice, soft yet commanding, echoed across the dunes. It wasn't a trick of the wind or a mirage, it was real. Against every protocol, every ounce of reason, William began to run. The voice led him to a rise in the dunes, where he first saw her. She stood at the crest, her figure silhouetted against the blazing suns. As he drew closer, her features sharpened, dark, flowing hair cascading down her back, eyes like polished obsidian, and skin that seemed to shimmer faintly under the light. Cradled in her arms was a baby, its cries growing fainter. William slowed his pace, caution overtaking his curiosity. "Who are you?" He called out, his voice carrying a mix of authority and confusion. "And how do you know my name?" The woman's gaze locked onto his, intense and unwavering. "My name is Velena," she replied, her voice steady despite the infant's distress. "I've lived here for years, and this child, it appeared a few days ago. I don't know where it came from, only that it needs help. We need help." She stepped forward, extending the baby toward him. William hesitated, but took the child, his arms adjusting instinctively to its weight. It felt impossibly light, its small frame trembling. "And my name?" he pressed. "How do you know it?" Velena tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "This desert knows all who walk its sands. You are no stranger here, William. The sands called you." The cryptic answer left him reeling. This doesn't make any sense. I was told this place was uninhabited, that it was lifeless." "Not lifeless," Velena corrected, her tone soft but firm, dormant. "The Golden Wastes are alive in ways you cannot yet understand, and now, so are you. The moment you set foot here, you became part of its story." The days that followed blurred into a strange rhythm. William stayed, unable to bring himself to leave Velena and the child. He rationalized it as a matter of safety, telling himself he needed to uncover the truth about this place before reporting back to his superiors. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. Velena intrigued him in ways he couldn't explain. She was a paradox, regal yet grounded, enigmatic yet deeply human. She spoke of the desert as if it were a living being, teaching him how to read the patterns of the shifting sands, how to listen for the faint hum of energy beneath their surface. "This land is ancient," she told him one evening as they sat by a small fire. "Older than any civilization you've ever known. It remembers everything, every step, every breath. And it does not give its secrets lightly." William found himself drawn to her stories, to the way her voice carried the weight of generations. Yet he also felt a growing unease. For all her knowledge, Velena seemed burdened by a deep loneliness, as if the desert's vastness mirrored a void within her. Despite himself, William began to feel something he hadn't expected: connection, not just to Velena, but to the desert itself. The shimmering sands, the whispering whines, they seemed to pull at something buried within him, something he hadn't known was there. One night, as the stars blazed above them, William finally voiced the question that had been gnawing at him. "Velena, why me? Why was I called here?" She looked at him, her dark eyes reflecting the firelight. "Because you have a role to play," she said simply. "The desert does not summon without purpose." "What role?" he pressed. She hesitated, her gaze shifting to the baby asleep between them. "I don't know yet, but I believe it's tied to this child and to me." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. William's chest tightened. He wanted to dismiss it all as superstition, as the delusions of a woman too long isolated. But he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her or the sense that she was right. Weeks turned into months. William and Velena's bond deepened, their partnership evolving into something neither could have anticipated. They worked together to care for the child, whom Velena had named Solus, after the desert's twin sons. But as their relationship blossomed, so too did William's ambition. He began to suspect that Velena herself might be the key to unlocking the desert's secrets. If he could harness its power, if he could understand its energy, he could change the course of human history. His love for Velena was genuine, but it clashed with a darker desire to conquer the desert, to become its master. The turning point came on a fateful night when Solus fell gravely ill. The baby's cries, once strong and insistent, had faded to weak whimpers, echoing through the stillness of the desert like a plea for mercy. Velena, her usually calm demeanor shattered, turned to William with desperation in her eyes. "The desert is rejecting him," she said, her voice trembling as if her own body carried Solus' pain. "Something is wrong. He cannot stay here." William felt the weight of her words pressing down on him, as though the very sands beneath them were accusing him of a crime he didn't fully understand. He knelt beside her, his hands hovering uncertainly over the child. Solus' small body, which once seemed so resilient, now appeared fragile, his breath shallow and erratic. "We can save him," William said, though the certainty in his voice felt forced. He couldn't bear to meet Velena's gaze. He feared the truths her eyes might reveal. "How, William?" Velena's voice cracked, a rare break in her usual strength. "The desert has a will of its own. If it has turned against him, it may already be too late." William clenched his fists. "No, I refuse to believe that. There has to be a way." Velena's silence was heavy, but it was her gaze that unsettled him most. She looked at him as though she saw something he was trying to hide, as though she had always known his thoughts, but was too gracious to voice them. That night, as Velena cradled Solus in the shelter of a hollow dune, William wandered out into the desert. The stars above him were brighter than ever, their cold light illuminating the rippling sands like a tapestry of secrets. He felt the desert's energy humming around him, its rhythms chaotic and unrelenting. For the first time, he spoke aloud to the emptiness. "What do you want from me?" The wine stirred, whipping around him in a swirl of golden grains. It was as if the desert had heard his question and was answering in its own ancient tongue. The sands beneath his feet vibrated, and he stumbled back, his breath quickening. "You brought me here," he said, his voice growing louder, angrier. "You called me by name, and now you want to take him away. Why?" The desert offered no clear reply, only a rising tension that filled the air. Yet within the chaos, William felt a flicker of something, an understanding just out of reach. The desert wasn't rejecting Solus, it was testing him. When he returned to Velena, the fire had burned low, its embers glowing faintly. She sat in the shadows, her face a mask of exhaustion and sorrow. Solus lay motionless in her arms, his tiny chest rising and falling with effort. "I need to take him away," William said quietly. Velena's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. "Away? Where?" "To my ship," William said, his words coming faster now. "The desert's energy is too strong for him. If we get him to the craft, the controlled environment might stabilize him." Velena's expression hardened, her features set in defiance. "You think leaving will save him? You think the desert will let you go so easily? We don't have a choice." William's voice cracked with frustration. "If we stay, he'll die. You said it yourself, something is wrong." Velena rose to her feet, clutching Solus protectively. "And what happens when you leave, William? Will you come back? Or will you take him and disappear, just as others have done before you?" The accusation hit him like a blow. He opened his mouth to respond, but found no words. Velena stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "This desert doesn't just take lives, William. It takes truths. If you leave, it will take something from you, too." Her words sent a chill down his spine, yet his resolve remained. "I don't care what it takes from me," he said finally. "I'm not going to let him die." The journey to the ship was grueling. William carried Solus in his arms, each step through the shifting sands feeling heavier than the last. Velena followed, silent and watchful, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of the stakes. As they climbed the final dune, the ship came into view, its metallic hull gleaming faintly under the starlight. Relief surged through William, but it was short-lived. The winds began to howl, and the sands around them rose like a tidal wave, swirling in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. "The desert is resisting," Velena shouted over the noise. "I don't care," William yelled back, pushing forward with all his strength. The ship was so close now, its open hatch beckoning like a sanctuary. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind knocked him to his knees. Solus let out a weak cry, his tiny fingers clutching at William's shirt. "William, stop!" Velena's voice was sharp, commanding. "You're risking more than you understand." But he ignored her, forcing himself upright. The desert could rage all it wanted, he wouldn't let it take Solus. As he reached the ship, the winds fell silent, and for a moment, William thought he had won. He stepped into the craft, its sterile air a stark contrast to the desert's raw intensity. But when he turned to look back, Velena stood at the edge of the hatch, her expression unreadable. She didn't step forward. "You're not coming?" he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Velena shook her head slowly. "This is my home, William. I cannot leave it." Vilena his voice broke, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. "Take him," she said, her tone soft yet unyielding. "Save him, but know this, the desert doesn't forget." Her words lingered in the air as she turned and walked back into the sands, her figure fading into the golden expanse. William watched her go, a part of him aching to follow, but he couldn't. Solus needed him now. As the ship's engines roared to life, lifting them away from the desert, William looked down at the endless dunes below. They seemed to shimmer with a strange, sentient light, as if watching him leave. He held Solus close, the child's breathing already growing steadier in the controlled environment. Yet his heart felt heavier than ever. The desert had given him something precious and taken something equally invaluable in return. And as the stars swallowed the golden wastes, William knew he would never truly escape its grasp.